Ladies and gentlemen, something just snapped in Minnesota, and once you see it, you just can't unsee it. Now, for months, voters, they were told everything was fine, that the system was working, that the money was going where it was supposed to go. But the one viral investigation hit the internet and destroyed everything, and suddenly the story collapsed in real time. Because when voters saw empty daycares, locked doors, misspelled signs, and millions of taxpayer dollars approved anyway, the question wasn't political anymore. It was personal. This is not about the left versus the right. This is about trust, and that trust is now gone. A single video from investigative journalist Nick Shirley spread like wildfire. It was shared by major national figures, watched by millions, and it exposed something that voters were never supposed to see up close. And the reaction was immediate. Support started evaporating, excuses stopped working, and suddenly Tim Walz found himself facing something no press conference can fix: a voter backlash fueled by visuals, not by spin. This is happening right now, guys, under a Trump presidency where voters expected accountability, not explanations. And tonight, we're gonna go ahead and walk through how a viral fraud video turned ballots in the backlash, why voters across Minnesota said enough, and why this story didn't just go viral, it detonated. Stick with me, guys, because once you connect these dots, you're gonna understand why this revolt didn't just start in Washington. It started with a camera and an empty building. Hit the like button. Thank you so much for clicking subscribe down below. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Now, this is the moment that things change, guys. Not gradually, not over months, all at once. I'm talking Minnesota voters didn't just wake up one morning deciding to flip. What happened instead was something far more dangerous politically. They saw it for themselves. And once that happens, there's no unseeing it. This was not like a policy disagreement. This wasn't partisan messaging. This was visual betrayal. People who had voted for Tim Walz before, they weren't hearing talking points anymore. They were watching locked doors, empty buildings, and taxpayer-funded programs that existed only on paper. That's when trust snapped. And here's a key part. Voters didn't feel confused. They felt lied to. That's why support didn't just soften, it evaporated. People just disappeared. When voters believe leadership knew or should have known and nothing stopped it, the ballots turn in the backlash. This is exactly what just happened here. Minnesota didn't just shift politically, it recoiled. And once recoil starts, it spreads. Every political collapse has a trigger. And in this case, it wasn't a debate, it wasn't a leak, it was a camera. Investigative journalist Nick Shirley didn't show up with a narrative, he showed up with questions and empty buildings, real addresses, real signs, real silence. That's why this video detonated. There was no pundit spin to argue with, no caption to fact check away. Viewers watched doors that never opened, facilities funded year after year with no one inside, and the tension came from what wasn't explained. People weren't told what to think. They were forced to ask, how did this happen, right? And so this is why the video didn't just trend, it escaped Minnesota. So when national figures began sharing it, the story crossed a line. It was no longer local. This was a warning. And voters understood immediately, if this could happen here, what else were they never meant to see? And so this is where the outrage turned into fury, because numbers can be debated, reports can be spun, but empty buildings funded with real money, that hits a little differently. You know what I'm saying? Voters watched footage of so-called daycare and learning centers that had no children, no activity, and sometimes no staff, yet millions of dollars had already been approved and paid out. Doors locked, lights off, signs misspelled. They couldn't even run spell check before making the sign. And still, the checks cleared. Now that image shattered the last line of defense. People weren't asking policy questions anymore. They were asking moral ones. Like, how does a state approve funding year after year when nothing exists on the ground? Who signed off on this? And why did no one stop it? This wasn't an audit buried in a PDF. This was a visual proof that bypassed media filters and it hit straight to the gut. Parents felt it, workers felt it, taxpayers felt it. And once voters saw money flowing to nothing, the narrative collapsed instantly. I mean, you don't argue with an empty building. And this is exactly why the story hits people so hard, because it's not just about empty buildings and missing money. It's about what doesn't get protected when systems fail. Now, if you were told me just last week she went in for what she thought was just a simple test, her Medicare plan covered the appointment, but not the test itself. The bill was $314. So she called her daughter crying her eyes out, not because of the money alone, but because she didn't even see it coming. And this is the part that really breaks people. And this is why I partner with Chapter. They don't sell you anything up front. They review your Medicare coverage line by line, and they find the uncovered tests, the uncovered procedures, and hidden gaps before they turn into surprise bills that wreck your month. Now, most people don't realize that their plan quietly leaves things out until it's too late. Now, if you want clarity instead of that sticker shock, people are already calling the phone number down below on your screen. Oh, and by the way, it's completely for free. It's an amazing service that they offer. And when you do call, tell them Ron says hello. Phone number is 909-563-8279, or you can click the link down below for askchapter.org/Ron. So after the visuals came the math. That's when the anger spread fast. People began sharing the numbers, not hypotheticals, not guesses, confirmed amounts that were tied to specific programs. $4 million here, tens of millions of dollars there, enough money to fund real classrooms, real services, real help, all gone. And here's the important part. Voters didn't need the biggest number to revolt. Even the confirmed losses were enough. Families struggling with groceries, they didn't care whether it was $40 million or $400 million. What mattered was that their money was approved, sent, and never questioned. That sounds like theft to me. Drop a stolen down below if you agree. Now, missing millions stopped being a headline and it became shorthand for something deeper. A system that protected itself instead of taxpayers. Now, that phrase spread because it captured betrayal in 2 words. And once voters started repeating it, online, in conversations, at work, the backlash took on a life of its own. Now, at that point, this wasn't about scale anymore. It was about accountability. Now, here's where the narrative fully flipped. Voters didn't just buy the idea that this was just a paperwork problem. They didn't accept that it was the system or lower level administrators or process gaps. The excuse collapsed the moment the visuals went viral. Because systems don't sign checks, leadership does. And this is why the focus snapped directly to Tim Walz. That's right, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Voters asked a very simple question that no press release could answer. How does this happen on your watch, Mr. Walz? You didn't need to know every detail to be responsible. You need to stop the bleeding once it's obvious, though. And from the voters' perspective, it was obvious, just not to the people in charge. This is why bureaucratic failure didn't land. It sounded like avoidance. In politics, avoidance reads as guilt. So once voters decide leadership failed its most basic duty, oversight, support doesn't drift away, it breaks. The moment this story left Minnesota, everything changed because now it wasn't just, local frustration, it was national validation. When figures like J.D. Vance publicly praised the investigation, it sent a clear signal to voters. You're not crazy for being angry. This mattered. What they were seeing mattered. That endorsement flipped the psychological switch. Suddenly, Minnesota voters weren't isolated. They weren't being told to wait for context. They were being told, yes, this does deserve scrutiny. Finally, right? That's when the backlash accelerated. Once national voices echoed what voters already felt, the story crossed a line. It became part of a broader conversation about waste, oversight, and accountability, especially under a federal government that had promised to crack down on fraud. Now, at that point, this wasn't about one video anymore. It was about whether leaders could still dismiss what millions of people had already seen? And the answer was no. So this is where the disconnect became impossible to ignore. While voters were still reacting emotionally to what they saw, much of the legacy media reacted clinically. Headlines focused on context, segments debated whether totals were overstated, panels argued about framing, but voters weren't debating the spreadsheets. They were reacting to the simple fact that the taxpayer money went out the door and nothing came back. This is why attempts to minimize the story didn't calm anybody down. It only made it worse. Every time voters heard the numbers are disputed, what they really heard instead was, you're missing the point. Because even the smallest confirmed losses were unacceptable in a state where families were stretched thin already. This wasn't about precision, it was about trust, and that trust was invalidated. And once voters felt that media outlets were more interested in managing outrage than explaining how it happened, skepticism hardened into anger. And the more the story was softened, the sharper the backlash became. So once the outrage settled, the hard questions followed. Not about helping people, but about how the system is protected from abuse. Voters weren't attacking recipients, they were demanding safeguards. They wanted to know how programs that were designed to help families could be exploited so openly without triggering alarms. And this is where the conversation widened. People started asking why oversight failed, why warning signs weren't acted on, and why accountability always seemed to arrive after the money was gone. The concern wasn't generosity, it was negligence. And that distinction matters. Because voters weren't saying end assistance, they were saying prove it's real, prove these services exist, prove the funds are tracked, prove somebody's watching this thing. Once that demand entered the conversation, it couldn't be shut down. Oversight became the new baseline expectation, not an afterthought. And when leaders couldn't clearly explain how the system failed so obviously, voters filled in the blanks themselves. Context matters, and timing matters even more. This scandal landed in late 2025 with Donald J. Trump back in the White House after a campaign built very heavily around accountability, fraud, reduction, and government oversight. That changed how voters interpreted everything. So under this administration, people expected results, not excuses. They expected waste to be flagged, abuse to be stopped, and leadership to take problems seriously before they exploded. So when the story broke, it didn't just feel like another scandal. It felt like confirmation of why voters demanded change in the first place. Instead of patience, there was impatience. Instead of benefit of the doubt, there was scrutiny. Voters weren't asking if accountability was needed, they assumed it was coming. And when state leadership appeared flat-footed or defensive, the contrast became sharper. Federal expectations were high. Local expectations felt thin. That gap right there fueled frustration and it accelerated the backlash. So this is where the reaction turned deeply personal. Now, for many voters, this wasn't about ideology. It was about identity. About being responsible, paying taxes, playing by the rules, and expecting leadership to do the same. When people saw money flowing to empty buildings, something snapped internally. They didn't feel outraged as conservatives or liberals. They felt outraged as contributors, as taxpayers. This is why the phrase, "this is why we voted," spread so quickly. It wasn't a slogan, it was a realization, a moment of clarity where voters felt their instincts had actually been right from the very beginning. Trust, once broken visually, it doesn't regenerate, it calcifies. That's the danger for any politician. Once voters decide leadership doesn't respect their effort or their money, the emotional bond is gone. And when that bond breaks, no messaging strategy can rebuild it. This is how revolts form, quietly, then all at once. Now, at this stage of the game, voters weren't looking for perfection. They were just looking for ownership. This is where the damage deepened. The response from Tim Walz didn't meet the moment. There was no immediate clarity, no decisive acknowledgement that what voters saw was unacceptable. Instead, explanations came slowly, framed around process and blame shifting. And silence in moments like this is never neutral. To voters already feeling betrayed, hesitation looked like avoidance, deflection sounded like dismissal, and every day without a clear, forceful response allowed frustration to harden. This is how political damage compounds, not because of one mistake, but because leadership fails to match the emotional gravity of the moment. When voters feel unheard, they assume the worst. And once that assumption sets in, support doesn't return quietly. It disappears loudly. So by the time explanations arrived, the narrative had already moved on, driven not by politicians, but by voters who felt done waiting. So this is where the story sits right now, not at resolution, but at reckoning. Voters are not calling for spectacle. They aren't demanding instant verdicts or dramatic announcement. What they're demanding is process with teeth. They want audits that lead somewhere. They want somebody getting arrested, right? Hearings that ask real questions, clawbacks where money was misused, and safeguards that actually stop this from happening again. Now, under Trump presidency, expectations are clear. Waste doesn't get explained away, it gets addressed. And that's the tension that's hanging over Minnesota today. Because once voters reach this phase, the bar changes. Transparency is not enough. Acknowledgement is not enough. Only action satisfies. This story is not fading. It isn't being memory holed. It has entered the accountability phase, the part that determines careers, legacies, and trust moving forward. And whether leaders like it or not, voters are watching very closely. So this isn't about one video. It's about what happens when voters finally see behind the curtain and decide that they're done pretending everything's fine. Like, subscribe, share this out. We'll see you next time.